Hey everybody. Let's go deeper into After Effects layers and time editing while working with some footage. So I've provided you guys with a folder full of footage and other resources. You'll need to unzip that before you can do any of this. So once that's done, let's import 3 pieces of footage. So we'll just go File, Import, File, right? And we browse, when you unzip everything, it should look like this, right? There's a folder full of JPEGs and 3 pieces of video, okay? So I'm gonna take Cityscape, I'm holding down Control to select multiple ones, Jet Landing and NYC Pan Down, Import, and here they are in my project area. I'm gonna drag, now there's 2 ways you can create a composition, right, from footage. 2 basic ways. One, and what I usually do is to just drag it right down into the layer area, and it will automatically create a composition that's the same pixel dimensions, right, and length as your footage. Okay, so it's a convenient way to do it. You can also drag, like sometimes you want to create a composition and there's already one open, because right, you can have multiple compositions. They'll be tabbed right down here, right, where it says Cityscape right now, because that's the name of this comp. It's based on the footage we just used. There'd be multiple ones tabbed here. So if you were to want to do this same maneuver where you just drag a piece of footage down to make a new composition, it won't work because there's already a composition there, right? So what you do in that case is drag the piece of footage into this little icon right here called Create a New Composition. It's right at the bottom of the project area. It's just the one that's kind of colorful, all right? But most of the time, I'm usually working with just one comp, and I don't need to do that. But during the course of this tutorial, I believe we will. So anyway, there's Cityscape. Let's also bring in Jet Landing and NYC Pan Down. So you can see that this thing is, we want to be able to make it so we can see all 3 pieces of footage in time. So the composition needs to be longer. So let's go up to, oh, by the way, I'm in standard workspace here. Okay. So let's go composition, comp settings. Okay. And this is 18 seconds long, I guess because Cityscape was that long, and it's 720 by 480 because that's the resolution of that piece of footage. So let's just, and the other ones are the same, I believe. So let's just change this to 30 seconds. So 30 and then 0. Okay, so it's 30 seconds long, and I'll say, okay. So this thing down here should be 30 seconds instead of 18 seconds. Nothing seems to have happened, right? It's just how it works. It did change, but see right down here where there's a little mountain and a big mountain at the very bottom of your screen, that just means we're now zoomed in on the timeline, right? So you always have to be aware of this thing, because you can get confused and think you're working on your whole composition and you're really only working on part of it. So make sure while you're working generally that you keep the slider dragged to the left. Now we can see what happened, right? It did add more time to it. If I drag this all the way to the right, it'll zoom way in, and you can get, so, because sometimes when you're working with keyframes in a very precise way, you got to be able to see each one separately. So we're really zooming in so we can see individual frames. But mostly you want to stay here. But there's a number of things that you can do that will cause this to automatically move. And if you're not remaining aware of what's going on down here, it can screw you up. All right. So, okay, so let's move these things around in time a little bit. So I'm going to move NYC Pan Down all the way to the end, right, like that, and this Jet Landing to the middle. Okay. And if I scrub my current time indicator, all right, so we will see them from the top down. So if I go to where there's both pieces of footage, right, Cityscape is the one I see because it's on top. When I get to the end of cityscape, I'm going to see a little bit of that jet landing, and that's going to completely cover NYC pan down until I get to there, and I just see that. So let's say we don't want to see all of our footage, okay? We can trim the layers so you only see parts of it. So we can make it so they're kind of more evenly distributed across this. So cityscape, right? Let's make it so we see less. What you got to do is put your cursor right on the edge of it there and drag this way. Okay, you still see a ghosted portion of it because that's how long the footage is, but the part that will display is the colored part here, or the more highlighted part. All right. And let's do the same thing with jet landing so it doesn't cover all of NYC pan down. So the way we did the first one was we just put our cursor right on the edge of it till it turned into that little double-ended arrow, and then we dragged. Here's another way to do it. If I go all the way here to, let's say I want the jet landing to end here, I do Alt right bracket. So that's a shortcut. All right. I'm putting all this also in the document that I have written up that I'm following right now, that you can have that too. So if you want to refer to any of this, you don't have to wade through the whole video again. So that's Alt right bracket. All right. And then also, if I want to do it on the left side, let's say I want to make some of this shorter here, it's Alt left bracket. Okay, so it does that. All right, so now we have a more evenly spaced thing where there's the jet landing and then da-da-da-da. Okay, so if you want to move a piece of footage so it starts earlier in the timeline, just move it to the left, okay? And if you want it to start later, you move it to the right, obviously, right? Now, there's something called slip editing where if you want to keep the in and out points, but move the footage, if that makes sense, like where it starts stay and ends stay the same, but the footage goes forward and backwards. You just click on the gray part and drag like that. See that? So the whole piece of footage is staying. The whole piece of footage is moving, but where it begins and ends stays the same. All right. Now you can see these things as numbers. If you look down the very bottom right of your screen, there's 3 little icons there, and those control what stuff shows in this area. Okay. Now there's lots of icons here, right? And we're going to just cover those as we need them. Because you know, when you go and just point at a lot of things and name them, nobody remembers that. So we just use them as we need them. Otherwise, just ignore stuff. And these things, by the way, can be in any different order. Like the eyeballs, that are probably the most important thing that controls visibility of a layer, I have in the middle here, but I think by default they might be over on the left. I forget. So anyway, if I click on this bracket here, it shows me there's the in and the out and the duration, and there's no stretch. Okay, so meaning this is the, like if I change the in point on this one, say the number for in is changing and the duration is changing. So you can see those numbers should you want to. All right, and also up here you can change what. So these little icons are shortcuts to the middle one here. Lets you see your blending mode, which is you use that quite a lot, and track mats, which we use some, but at the moment we're not using them. So I'm just going to click on the middle one. If we click on the left one, it hides a whole bunch of stuff, okay, which might be useful just because it keeps less junk there, okay. And also, anyway, you can also hide or show things down here by, like, say I don't want to see this stretch. If I just right click on it, hit hide this, it goes away, okay. And I can also right click and go to columns, and here's a bunch of new stuff I could turn on that I currently have hidden. All right. So anyway, I'm just gonna hide both of those and keep this hide everything and keep this very simple down here. I think that's okay to do at the moment. So anyway, so that's moving your layers in time, and slip editing is doing this, okay? Now, sometimes you might be zoomed way in and at like this, okay? And you can't see or you're somewhere in the timeline where you can't see the ghosted out part to move it, all right? Not sure how important this is, but I'm telling you anyway. To do that, you can move the ghosted part when you can't see it by using the pan behind tool. Okay, so remember that's this guy up here. And if I go here, right, and I drag even on the highlighted part, see it's slip editing. All right, so I'm going back to my regular selection tool. All right, so that's just moving things left and right and trimming layers. Okay. If you're moving a layer in time like this and it has keyframes on it, it moves with the highlighted part of the layer. If you slip edit, the keyframes don't move. In practice, that makes sense when you think about it, but at the moment, it's just a rule. Okay. All right, so that lets us work with this pretty easily. If you want to change the order of things, like at the moment, we put the thing that comes first is on top, but that doesn't have to be. Like if I take jet landing, watch, I can just drag it up till I get to the top, and now that's on top, okay? And when I'm playing through here, it becomes the thing I see at this point. Just putting it back in the middle there. All right, let's look at looping footage, okay? How to make something repeat. That's a common thing you might want to do. So we have to import a piece of footage. So file, import, and let's get this clock plus skyline thing. Okay. All right. So so now we want to make a new composition for this. So here's an instance where if I drag it down here, it's just going to add it to this comp, right? So we take that and drag it to the create new comp icon right there. And there it is. Now it's got a new composition, okay? And it's the length and duration of this thing. See, if I scrub the current time indicator, it just does that, okay? It goes from 4 o'clock to 4 o'clock about. All right, so it's one loop. Okay. And you can see here's city. Our two comps are down here, tabbed in there. So here's our cityscape. It's still there. Here's clock plus skyline. All right. So here's another case. We want to make this thing loop. Okay. So let's go back to composition, comp settings, and we can see it's 10 seconds long. And let's just make that, again, let's make it 30. Okay, so it'll be 3 times as long. Okay, okay. And again, nothing seems to have changed. So we drag this little thing way down the bottom of the screen to the little mountain. And there we go. All right, so to make this thing loop, we have to, let's see here. We have to do it in the project area. To me, this seems kind of odd because normally it seems like it should be something that you would right click on it in the timeline or in the layer area and fix it there, but we do it up here. Now there's going to be 2 things called, excuse me, clock plus timeline. There's going to be the original piece of footage, and then there's going to be the comp that we're currently in that you made. Okay, that was just added when you dragged it to the create new comp. So comps show in the project area too. So if we right click on this thing, interpret footage and main, okay? And there's a bunch of stuff here that we can use, but at the moment we just want to make a loop. So we go loop 3 times, change it to 3, and okay. Now here you can see that extends the footage, but it doesn't extend the out time. All right, so you could just drag this thing all the way to the right, or you could go end, right? End, so I'm at the end, and then Alt right bracket. I didn't highlight the layer. Alt right bracket, and there we go. Okay. So now if I play it just by hitting space bar, it goes to, it loops 3 times. Good. So that's if you're making a video and you have one thing, ball bouncing or something like that, and you want it to repeat for a longer amount of time, this is a very common thing that you might want to do. All right, let's look at importing image sequences. Okay. It's it's very common to want to bring a folder full of still JPEGs or PNGs or something like that and turn them into a piece of footage. If any of you are in the 3D graphics and animation class that comes after this one, that's when I'm rendering an animation. You can render directly to, let's say, an MOV or AVI or whatever file type 3ds Max will allow. But I generally render to a folder full of still images, and then I import them into After Effects to turn them into video. Okay, because if you're sending it to still images, you can stop it at any time, or if your computer crashes, you can see where it ended and pick up anew. So anyway, when people are rendering 3D stuff, they do it this way. And there may be some other reasons why you might want to do it, like this one here. So let's see. Let's go. We got to go back and import and make a new thing. So File, Import, File, right? And you should see that in MyBridge sequence. Okay. This guy MyBridge, I have this big book of stuff he did. It was from way back in, I don't know, the 1800s or sometime. But he photographed all these sequences of animals running and birds flying and people walking, and he was kind of analyzing movement. And I think that's the first time people figured out that, I don't think with your eye people could tell that horses had all 4 feet off the ground when they're galloping, or just information like that. So here's this, it's just a looping piece of footage of this guy walking, carrying dumbbells. So I click on the first one, and these are TIFF files, right? It's just an image format. And you can see here, it's probably highlighted by default, but if not, make sure that's checked, because it's going to bring it in as a sequence. All right. Force alphabetical order is something where if you end up in a folder with like the images aren't in order, but there's an alphabetical order, it's something that, don't worry about it. I mean, I've had to use it on occasion, but probably won't happen. Anyway, import. Okay, so that's there. And let's bring this into create a new composition. All right, so now we have 3 comps nested in here. And if we play this, it's this dude walking. All right, so we brought in a folder full of still images. Let's make this thing loop. So we have 2 things now, the comp we made, right? And here's the original footage. So right click on this, interpret footage main, and let's make it loop 100 times. Okay. What did I do? It's looping 100 times, but it doesn't seem to have. let's see. Let me try it. Let's. I'm feeling like that should work, but oh, maybe I needed to do that first. Okay, so I'm going to drag this piece of footage again to create new composition. Okay, so I have two things named My Bridge. All right, so I don't know. It's not exactly what I expected it to do, but I fixed it anyway. So now I have a long piece of footage where he's walking. Okay. Like this one, right? That's kind of quirky because this one we did it the way I was just describing. Okay, anyway, we figured out a way to do it just by making a new composition after interpreting the footage. All right. Let's see. Let's try. Let's see if this works. So he's walking pretty fast, right? And let's see if we can make it go slower. So I'm going to right click on the original footage, interpret, see if it works here, main, and assume this rate. It's 30 frames a second. Let's make it 10 frames a second. Ah, okay, that worked. That may have just, the problem I just had there with that might not happen for you because I went through this yesterday and I didn't do that, or maybe I just did something slightly differently. Anyway, he's walking slower. Okay. So that what we're doing there is just done on the raw footage. Okay. We can also do it on in the footage layer. Sorry, my voice is. If I right click down here and go to time and time stretch, okay? The stretch factor is 100%, right? So if I make it 50, see how it changed the length of the footage here, and he's walking faster. If I right click on it, time stretch, and make it 200, he's walking slower. Okay, so you can do it either up here through interpret footage main, or you can do it down. They're different, you know, they're not exactly the same thing, but they both speed up or slow down the footage. Time stretch. Okay, I'm going to put that back to 100. It's the default 100%. All right, here's another thing, time remapping, okay? This is pretty cool. It's easy to use. All right, let's see. We're working at a pretty normal pace, right? So if I right click on the footage here and go to time, enable time remapping, okay? All this does is gives you the ability to put keyframes on the footage and drag it doesn't do anything by when you just put them there, but if you move the keyframes, like when two events happen closer together, they happen faster, right? So for example, and this little thing here, okay, right? See that little doohickey with a dot in the middle and the arrow to the left and the arrow to the right? Go to the next keyframe, add or remove a keyframe. So this thing, it'll take the current, if you click on this one, the current time indicator goes to the end, right? Which was a keyframe off my screen. So maybe don't do that. I'll hit home to get back again. All right. And this one goes to the previous keyframe. It just moves the current time indicator. But the dot in the middle drops a keyframe wherever you are at the current value. So it doesn't do anything, but it gives you a control point. So let's go kind of to the middle somewhere like this, okay? And I'll drop a keyframe. And then I'll go a little bit farther over here, and I'll drop a keyframe, okay? Nothing changed, but now I'm going to move those keyframes closer together, like this, okay? So what that means is the footage out here got slower, and the footage in here got quite a bit faster. So watch when we play it. He's walking slow, and then he's walking really fast. And I was walking slow again. All right, so that's a cool thing, like time remapping. That's you know, if you're doing a piece of footage with a guy on a skateboard and he's jumping the skateboard up in the air, and then he kind of like goes really slow and then he goes fast again, you could, that's normally done with this, okay? And it creates some cool effects. Again, that's right click, time, enable time remapping. So down here, we can work with it really simplified like this, except the one thing, the middle one of these three icons, the middle one is maybe the most important to be showing, because this mode here, the track mat, you don't need necessarily, because that's kind of something you might use, but it's not like an everyday thing. But the blending mode, okay, if you know Photoshop at all, this is almost the same list as blending modes in Photoshop. There's a few extra things, but it's very similar. So, but you can, if you want to keep this whole area down here simple, you can just work with all of them turned off, and we still see the eyes there, and we still see this thing to create a keyframe, which we use this quite a lot. So yeah.